Welcome to the AMNOW LIMS Edge Appliance series, video series. This is Module 2, discussing how it works. In the previous module, we introduced the concept of a LIMS appliance, and now we're going to take a look at actually how the whole thing works. My name is Nat Frampton, Director of Engineering of Lex Energy, and I'm the inventor of the LIMS appliance and all the software that we're going to see running there. There are multiple things that the LIMS does, but in this video, we're going to concentrate on two things, and very important things. Connecting to your equipment, connecting to your printers, connecting to your devices, and finally collecting some data. So let's talk a little bit about it. You have some printers on site. The AMNOW group will meet with you, talk about those printers, and those will probably help identify the projects that you're going to be involved on. The second step of that is talking to your IT team, to creating the understanding the type of network controls and network policies you have in place, and working with you to make sure that the LIMS appliance connects to that. We worked hard to make and connect to DoD security, the NIST certifications, to make sure that the LIMS appliance is meeting the network requirements. That'll be covered in a later video. And also, if we're going to connect to that equipment and be able to see all this great data, we love to be able to collect it. And I'm going to go through that process of exactly what that looks like. So that's the basic steps that we're looking at. And what we're going to do now is go ahead over to actually looking at that happening. So I'm going to go ahead and transfer over to a program called Solution Builder. This can go quite rapidly. So I want you to be able to see exactly what happens in Solution Builder and to understand what we're trying to do. So Solution Builder is a PC-based application. As you connect to devices, and we've configured them and connected them, they appear in the tree over on the left-hand side. If you connected to a particular device, so we're looking at, in this case, I've connected to a thermostat that was connected to a serial port. Again, those devices are listed in this tree to the left-hand side, and your job is, via your basic computer skills, is to open up the tree, look at the device that you're interested in, and go ahead and get the information out of that device. So let's look at the humidity, which is listed down here as data associated with that particular device, and then we'll take the humidity and make a numeric value out of it. Scroll down a little bit, and we see that it also has temperature. So I'm going to go ahead and list that temperature right underneath there. So there's two pieces of data that are interesting. The other thing, so in that tree, we will collect all of the information that's interesting. And now what I want to do is show you what it looks like to connect to a particular machine. We've looked at connecting to the machines, and we've put them together into a wizard so that you can literally just drag and drop your way to connecting a printer. So I have a Prusa device connected to my LIMS box via a USB module. And I'm just going to go ahead and connect it. And, you can even spell it wrong, and that still works. So we'll take our connected printer, and now our connected printer shows up in the tree. It uses a technology called Marlin, which it doesn't matter to you, but there's our Prusa that we're interested in getting data from, and we can look at any data we'd like. So let's take the axes and drag that out. That Prusa is currently running behind me. Let's also look at the extruder, and it shows me by connecting to the Prusa and looking at a particular data on there. I'm going to take a look at the current temperature for the extruder, and I'll show that on a graph, for example. I'll take the target temperature and drag it onto that same graph, and now I can see what its target is and what its actual temperature is. So this gives them the ability to quickly look at data within the system. So again, we talked about connecting. We've connected to the printer, and that's just by going through a wizard. The next thing we'd like to do is to be able to take all that great data that we're collecting and bring it into a data collector. So this is our Prusa, named properly, data. And now let's go ahead and make that just a little bit bigger. So all I've done is told it that I'm going to go over here and create a database collector. That's great. Now what data you'd like in it? You can drag anything out of the tree. So let's take the entire printer that I've connected to, and we can see all of the data coming in from it. And then let's add some data to it. Let's go down to that thermostat that we talked about. we've got some humidity, and we've got temperature that we'd also like to connect from that piece of data. And there it is. Now, down at the very bottom of that collector, we see that we're currently collecting the temperature and humidity. So all I'm going to do is just save that data collector. I tell it how often to run, and in this case, I'm just going to do a 5-second trigger, but you can change that, or you can tell it to change on a particular piece of data. And once that's configured the way you'd like, you just start running the collector. So again, we haven't used any skills you don't already have. This entire system is designed for you, the user, to be able to connect and get data from a system. So now we're currently running. And what does that mean to you? I just told you that data is going out to a database. That doesn't really mean anything to you yet. Let's take a look in the database. So we open up our data tab here and look underneath here. And now we see that Prusa USA data is going out. So I'll select here on the toolbar to look at databases and drag out the Prusa data. And we can see the data continuing to fill itself out in here. I can always refresh the table and see new rows that are coming in. If I want to take that data and move it out to something familiar, I would export it to Microsoft Excel, for example, and then that would create a CSV file that I can save to my drive. So again, we came in, we used a wizard, like the AM wizard, connected to a printer, brought that information, and now it appears in the tree. I add a data collector, drag any of the information in, visualize it any way I want, and all of a sudden I've got this rich environment with just a couple mouse clicks. So let's go back and take a look at where we are. So again, we've connected to some equipment, we've collected some data, and we did that by just dragging out a data collector, dragging in some data, and telling it to collect. So that's the basic processes that I wanted you to understand and feel that were going on inside of there. And again, we can take that data and bring it out to Microsoft Excel, and now we have that. So the next thing we want to look at is how would I connect this LIMS system to my network? And typically, we'll be in this bridged example. In some cases, we're going to be in an air-gapped example. And what does air-gap mean? Air-gap means that you're not going to connect to any network. There's a red line between any data coming from the LIMS device connecting to your network, so your business network where you're getting information. And that may be in a scenario where you don't have IT capabilities of getting from your machines back to your IT network, or you're restricted from doing that, such you're doing particular types of prints or something like that. So that's the air-gapped example. In the bridged example, what we're looking at is connecting to the LIMS box. It has two connectors. One of the connectors can talk to your machines. Machines should never be on the internet because some machines like to phone home and get updated. So we're not going to put them on the internet. So we're going to have the LIMS box have one connector for the manufacturing network and make sure that never gets out to your business network. And that's the other connector on the LIMS box here. And that's connecting for your bridged example. So the LIMS is then bridging between the two. We'll talk about the security in a later system, but we've worked hard to make sure that we're exceeding the current DoD requirements, and we're going to make sure that your data is safe. And one thing to always remember is that we will never pull data from your system. You will only decide when a report is, when data that you have is ready to come back to AMNOW, you'll do that and report that back to the program, but you will push that data. So air-gapped and bridged. Bridged is a typical example of what we're doing, and if we need to, we go air-gapped where we have no connectivity from the LIMS box, and the LIMS box is able to live all by itself. So how would I use that data if I did get it? I've connected to the equipment, collected some data, maybe even applied some analytics, and I'm running inside of here. Now what I want to do is know when that printer shuts down. So I may go ahead and start off with an email and just send you an email saying that at 2:48 a.m. the power failed on this printer, and just wanted to let you know that. And we were about 78% complete, but we did not finish it. You can choose at this point now to turn off power that's generating and connecting to an oven or something like that. So we have lots of options to do with the data. But I wanted to just give you a brief introduction, showed you how it worked, connected to some piece of equipment, and get that data collected for yourself. So we're going to follow up next with Module 3 that will talk about the security of the system. but I wanted to give you an introduction and a feel for exactly how the process works. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.